find yourself getting passed by multiple cars, as I mentioned earlier on. So you're off in a very precarious situation, but he often finds himself in these places. He doesn't qualify as well as he races.
Up front, they are getting with Lee Aberdeen and Luca Varani, not very far apart at all here. But I just want to see how Alistair Haight deals with Marcello Kessler coming around the old hairpin.
Say it's not the best decision they've ever made, just not having done that under the safety car, really.
Yeah, they're taking their pit stop strategies from Ferrari lately or something. What's going on?
In turn one, just too much gas on them, too much feet on the loud pedal, and unfortunately he's dropped him all the way down the order. But Philip Hammer is out in front by an 8.91 seconds. Dan Michael is a wall there, sir. And definitely doesn't want to be hitting that earlier on as well.
Difficult, the understeer is in the dirty air through that final corner because it's such a long corner and you get dragged off into the grass very easily. He'll have the slipstream down towards the chicane. Peterson was briefly alongside, but that slipstream has saved him and kept him in third.
Yeah, Varani now lost a little bit of time to Aberdeen, about half a second. Peterson is Pike's pushed Morton forward up ahead. He's got out of line. Is now Pike going to have a go at Werrell? Don't push him off. He's in the championship fight. Jack Werrell chasing down Carl Jacklin. Further down, Rob Williams and Chris Barnes.
Sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's come back into play. Exactly. Miller's still start dropping. He's not on second and change. All of a sudden Miller's back in play.
On to the back end of Phil Jocelyn, so there's been a lot of movers and shakers in this first 2 laps here for race.
Absolutely serious racing league. Everybody's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's all about the entertainment. So I hope everybody is enjoying themselves out there in the chat. We know that Ron is been enjoying himself watching the Burger King machines off into the grass a little bit there as they're really bunching up now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into the Thumbsticks at the Glen here with Triple Bypass on a fun Tuesday night. My name is Bradley Dalton. I am going to be joined by the great friend who really got me into sim racing, Mr. Alex Goldshmidt, and we'll get the overlay working here in like 0.25 seconds. It's not a normal stream if there's not a little bit of an issue here with getting something to show. But there it is, and we are at Watkins Glen. But while we get things going here and we're getting ready and preparing for things underway, let's take a trip down memory lane and look at Chicago 1 week ago today.
On June 11th, 2024, Chicagoland Speedway hosted a terrific race in the triple bypass SRX series. The 100-lap event was packed with excitement, featuring 5 different leaders, 7 lead changes, and just 3 cautions that slowed the field for only 10 laps. The race was sponsored by Ryan Hyatt and his Corgi Army and streamed live by our friends at JP Broadcasting. Brad Kress in Car 9 was the star of the show, dominating the race from the pole position to take the victory. Kress led for 44 laps and set his fastest lap time of 32.60 seconds on lap 57. His consistent speed and skillful driving were unmatched throughout the race. What a remarkable performance. Steve McClendon, driving car 151, gave a strong chase, finishing just 3.81 seconds behind Kress. McClendon showed his speed by leading for 19 laps and recording his fastest lap at 32.59 seconds on lap 56. Al Corey, in the 45 car, made an impressive climb from 12th to finish 3rd, just 0.34 seconds behind McClendon. His climb through the field was a highlight of the race, showcasing his tire saving that resulted in his charge to the podium. Terry Brooks put in another terrific effort to secure 4th as he battled Corey and McClendon in the last 10 laps in an epic struggle for 2nd place. Jason Benson rounded out the top 5, completing the race 9.67 seconds behind the leader and setting the fastest lap of the race with a 32.49. The race at Chicagoland was a thrilling spectacle with intense battles and strategic plays. The 3 cautions added to the drama, creating opportunities for drivers to make bold moves and alter their strategies. We hope you enjoyed this thrilling triple bypass SRX series recap. We'll see you next time.
All right, and welcome back from that little blast from a week ago, Chicagoland. That was fun to cover, Mr. Ewan O'Leary. But as I said a second ago, when you couldn't read it, but now you can read it and you see it, it is me, Bradley Dalton, yet again, triple bypass. I'm starting to claim this league as my baby here on the JP Broadcasting Network. And of course, we're going to bring along another Brit. It's not Ewan, it's not James Parfit, but it is a good friend, Alex Goldshmidt. Alex, good evening, my friend, or good morning to you.
Hey Brad, hey everybody. Great to be alongside you for some Superstar Racing Experience, aka SRX, and also we're at the Glen on the southern tip of Seneca Lake, just southwest of Watkins Glen, in a little place called Dix in New York, and that's DIX for those uninformed people of you. But yeah, I mean, going from ovals to road courses, and one of the things I love about these cars is that it always reminds me of the Plymouth Cuda of the king himself, Richard Petty, with the big wing on the back of it. And then you've also got the fact that these cars are powered by 700 brake horsepower, air-breathing, Ilmor V8 engines. You know, it's going to be a tricky one for our drivers tonight around this just shy of 2.5 mile road course. We're using the international NASCAR, but with the famed inner loop as well. So yeah, these SRX cars are going to be a bit of a handful, but qualifying's getting underway, Brad.
Yeah, the SRXs, they're cars that I've enjoyed. Of course, the controversial decision to replace the late models, and I've talked to Al Corey about it, and I think it was the correct decision. And of course, we've seen them on dirt at Bristol. We've seen them run Speedway, Chicagoland, and now we get to see road course. So this is a very versatile car that can run anything and really get away with it. And of course, now that we're going through, we've got Richmond Raceway, we've got Stafford Motor Speedway coming up, New Smyrna, Eldora is going to be a dirt race on the 30th of July. I can't wait to see that one. And then of course, Charlotte and Hickory, August 6th and August 13th, and that'll round out the first season of the SRXs here. I'm really, really excited to see how that goes. And if you're wondering where we're at in the season, well, let's talk about it, because we're 6 rounds in here, and Stephen McClendon is 247 points up. Brad Kress is at 235 points. Ben Harcum's at 228. Matt Parasini Does he pull a Parasini pirouette? Well, I don't actually see him here tonight, but he is doing pretty well at 224 points. Mike Weida at 211, and then Matt Harmon, JC John Campbell, Al Corey, Jason Benson, and James Honeycutt are your top 10 in the points as it stands. And of course, a big shout out goes to this beautiful driver here that we're going to just very quickly get up on our screens here, Mr. Thumbsticks himself, Tyler Merritt. And yes, I was explaining to Alex before the broadcast, Thumbsticks is called Thumbsticks because he drives with thumbs. He uses a controller, and I will never not be confused by that, but he does it, and he makes it work. And he's pretty doggone fast. So if there's a driver to keep your eyes on, it is going to be Tyler Merritt as we get going underway here. And doesn't look like anyone's put up a time yet. It's 2 laps here around the Glen that they can make stick. And I tell you what, Alex, this is a challenging track. Deceptively challenging, I would say.
Yeah, I completely concur with you on that, Brad, because obviously these cars officially announced back in 2020. You know, they really have no sort of real sort of downforce assist apart from that honking big rear wing on the back end of it. You know, there's no split, there's no like canards on the side, you know, the front corners of the car. They've really got to grip it and rip it with these cars. And you know, we're riding aboard with Mr. Thumbsticks himself going into turn 1. And you know, there's a lot of camber that these cars are going to have to deal with as well, because you've got to be very, very easily on the throttle. You've got to modulate it really, really well. Now through into turn 2 and going up through the S's at 3 and 4. Of course, 11 turns at this NASCAR layout, and you can see Tyler just using as much of the track, even a little bit of grass as well, going through now into the fast right-hander here at T4. And then it's down the back straight in towards the inner loop, and you've got to be very, very hard on the brakes and be very committed. We have seen a few drivers go a little bit off track. I mean, Tyler's trying to make it as smooth and as silky as possible. And that's one of the things you've got to be with these SRX cars. You've got to be very, very cautious. You know, steering inputs, you know, you're not going to be making left turns a lot of the time, but that's an art and a skill set in all itself. You know, I've got a real respect for people that do go on the ovals, no matter whether it be the NASCAR trucks, whether it be the you know, the current generations, and then of course the SRX cars. You know, they're a single platform, so everyone's in the same equipment, but some people are going to be able to put it in better than others. And Tyler Merritt, Mr. Thumbsticks, is currently leading the way here in qualifying with a 1:15.138. Matt Harmon is about 8 tenths off, but then Brad Kress is like literally right with him and actually just goes quicker by, what is it, next to nothing. Next to absolutely nothing. 7 1/1000ths. Terry Brooks Jr. comes across the line. That's his 2 laps in the bag, and he's just put himself P4. Al Corey's just gone 5th on a 1:16.670, and that's probably his run in qualifying. Looks like we're going to have 13 cars on the grid, as we've got the nudge John Crutchley, and then also the number 61 of Isaiah Warren. 61, sorry. Kyle St. Jean has just gone off track. And so is Tyler, Mr. Thumbsticks. Not as smooth, and you can see back end stepping out, going into the outer loop. And, well, there's a pirouette, and then he lights up the rears.
I think Tyler is just having fun right now. I think this is just him enjoying himself a little bit as we go through this qualifying session, just about hitting the halfway mark, but it does seem like most drivers have put in their laps. Isaiah Warren is still working on a lap, and this is a driver that is a new face here to the league, just joined in today, and is probably just getting comfortable a little bit, but doesn't seem to be doing bad at all here. And that's the big thing with, you know, triple bypass that I enjoy. They even let me. They've let James, and you and me both know how James is. They've let James race with them, and they've let me race with them. This is a very open and welcoming league that will let anyone jump in and join regardless of skill level, and they'll encourage you. And if you're James, they're going to spin you into a wall under the pace lap. So,
well, that's if he's had any of his. If he likes to put his likes to court the old controversy from time to time that we know that Mr. Parfit does like to entertain. But yeah, I think it's like you say, a lot of these community leagues, and notwithstanding triple bypass, where I've commentated on some of the NASCAR track action, and it's just sort of that friendly atmosphere where a lot of the leagues run. It's about, you know, it doesn't matter your skill set, as you rightly put it there, Brad, that you're more than welcome, and people will help you. But then there'll be a point when you might be as fast as them, and they'll go, right, what do we need to do to get a shot of this guy? Just is it going to be a little slight rub and run and see what happens? It does happen sometimes, but yeah, let's see how Isaiah gets on. I mean, he's currently about 60% of the way through the lap, coming through the outer loop, and then it's the run through into the final couple of corners. I mean, a total of 11 turns, 8 to the right, 3 to the left. So the right-hand tyres on these cars could get a little bit of a proper scrubbing, and they're going to have to take care of that degradation over the 30 laps, which, from that kind of perspective, Brad, is going to be key here tonight here at the Glen.
Yeah, 30 laps, no cautions, no full track cautions, local cautions, possibly if there's a big wreck, but we're not expecting any cautions at all. And honestly, with the way triple bypass is, I don't expect a big wreck. And Isaiah Warren's put his lap in here. He's good enough for P10. He's going to bring it around another lap. And I love this blip cam because you can see the whole track and how it flows together with all of those right-hand turns, with a couple of left-hand turns in there, because you kind of have to go. Sometimes you got to turn left to go right, you know. But it's going to be a fun one. I wouldn't anticipate pit stops, but then again, I don't really know. I can tell you my guess on pit stops and tires, and I tend to always be wrong with that. So I will say, whatever I'm saying, just don't trust me. I'm sure there's a driver out there that will tell me what the fuel strategy is and the tire strategy is, if they are going to be utilizing that appropriately. And of course, they do have 2 tire changes, 1 fast repair. So it is possible we'll see some people decide to pit in for tires, but then you have to weigh that pro and con of the time of the pit stop. Are you going to make that up on fresh tires as opposed to just running through? But I would guess that we'll see a few drivers make that gamble at some point, as Isaiah Warren is our last driver to put in a lap and comes across at a 1:17.31. So not looking bad at all as we get the times pulled up. So other than Brian Cooper, who I think that lap is an outlier, honestly, with a 1:19.8, it looks like most of the times are within 1 to 2 seconds of each other. So should be a pretty competitive run from everyone.
Yeah, the only thing that's concerning me, Brad, is that in this qualifying session, track temperature incredibly high, 45 degrees Celsius. That's 113 Fahrenheit, 114. So that is where the biggest problem is going to be in when it comes to tires. Now, this circuit, a lot of camber. That's going to, and especially when the majority of the turns are right-handers, the right side could be getting a lot more abuse from the way that these cars are going to run. I mean, we are timing out on qualifying in about 30 seconds here at the at this fantastic circuit. I mean, it's one that, you know, with the full circuit normally is part of the the iRacing special events for the 6 hours of the Glen. And, you know, Tyler Merritt, Mr. Thumbsticks, has put it on pole by a whopping nearly 0.8 of a second. And it was so close between Brad Kress and Matt Harmon in the 9 and the 28. But then the thing is, the qualifying is one thing. The racing is something completely different, as we've had to check it out for the Thumbsticks at the Glen here for the Triple Bypass Racing League for SRX. And you know what? Bring it on. Let's see what happens over 30 laps here at the Glen here, Brad.
Yeah, this is going to be a very, very good 30 laps. As we get ready to get going here, let's go ahead and pull up our grid. And let's talk about this grid really quick here. So it's Tyler Merritt to Brad Kress with Matt Harmon and Terry Brooks Jr. And look at that gap in the top 4, 1.5 seconds. So I have a feeling that if Matt Harmon and Brad Kress and Tyler Merritt can get a good run off the race start, they should be in a fairly good spot. Brad Kress and Matt Harmon should be able to battle, but I can see why Thumbsticks decided he wanted to sponsor this race as we go through. And then it is, of course, Matt Harmon, Terry Brooks Jr. there in 4th place. Very strong driver, and him and Al Corey are side-by-side P4 and P5 for the race start here. So we'll see how that affects them. We saw what happened with them at Chicagoland, and we'll see what goes from there. JC John Campbell, P6, still needs to pay that Krispy Kreme invoice I sent him. Steve McClendon, Jason Benson, James Honeycutt, Isaiah Warren, Kyle St. John, Brian Cooper, and the Naj Crutchley in 13th place on his own. So 13 cars will enter, and we'll see how many finish things up as the race goes on. I do think this is going to be a very, very good race for all of them, and hopefully Thumbsticks does not run away with it. We saw he was slipping and sliding a little bit during qualifying, so it is possible that somebody might be able to bring the run to him.
Yeah, I mean, air temperature just a shade over 71 degrees Fahrenheit, track temperature 95 degrees Fahrenheit, so not as hot as what it was during qualifying. That's 35 degrees Celsius track temp. So in some respects, if you know the server time has just gone past 4:15 in the afternoon, but also the good thing is at least everyone gets a full pace lap behind the Porsche safety car. So it is about getting that, making sure those pressures were correct before the warm-up started, and then also about, if you're going to start weaving a little bit from side to side, putting the brakes on. Ben Harcum in chat saying, I'm on vacation. Well, Ben, good to see that you're also tuning in as well. Hopefully we'll have you back a little bit later on in the season. But yeah, I'm really interested to see. I mean, Steve McClendon starting from seventh spot on the grid. He's got 6 other cars to get through if he wants to continue holding on to that points lead going into the next round of the season.
Yeah, Steve McClendon is a quick car, and I think for some drivers it's just road courses aren't their thing, and that's something that I respect, because there's certain tracks that you just don't get along with. And I love that shot right there as they come through the bus stop, just how close the cars, even in the pace lap, get to the wall. And as they come out of the bus stop here, I love this speed cam. Expect to see it a couple more times tonight as we go on here. But as they come through the right-hander, I gotta think, what will be the game plan for everyone? Because with the track temp going down, it's later in the day, I think your tires might get away with it a little bit more, but those right sides are still gonna have a very bad time, and I wouldn't be surprised to see just some casual spins off and on as this race goes.
Yeah, that's going to be the tough point, because if the drivers have got themselves ready and they've got everything shipshape and Bristol fashion, as we would say here in the UK, that you've done everything, you've left no stone unturned, and you know that if you can make a good getaway, and maybe if you name Steve McClendon, make up a couple of spots going into turn 1, because that turn 1 is very, very precarious as we're getting ready for the race start here at the Glen.
Yeah, and as the iRacing Porsche safety car peels off, it's going to be coming down the start-finish line here under the lead of Tyler Merritt. Thumbsticks on the left-hand side there with that Setup Shop LLC livery, and he's underway here. We're green, green, green for 30 laps of the Glen, and as we get going, it is going to be Merritt. Who is that locking up in the background? That was, I believe, Steve McClendon that we talked about, and Steve McClendon is going to take out James Honeycutt. Lap 1, turn 1 starts with a bang in Watkins Glen fashion, but as they get away, we'll check out a replay of that in a moment. How is everyone getting through the hill? Well, Tyler Merritt up front with Brad Kress not too far behind as it sits Matt Harmon. Terry Brooks Jr. there in P4. We'll be looking for redemption from him. And Al Corey, the silent sleeper from Canada, there in 5th place. He'll be looking for a run as we go into the bus stop for the first time. And to tell you what, that race start was a little bit scary.
Well, I think it was definitely code brown for Steve McClendon when he went into the side of James Honeycutt. And, that's Brian. I think that's Brian Cooper. That's just had a moment. And that's coming through the, trying to accelerate coming out of the bus stop and going through into the outer loop. It's just difficult, that part. You've got to really modulate the throttle there.
It is, and these cars drive very much like late models. So imagine taking a late model on a road course. You're probably not going to have the best time imaginable, but as we settle in here, Brad Kress is trying to get a run on Thumbsticks. He's not running away like he did in qualifying. He's got company of Brad Kress a little bit, but I do want to go back and watch that lap 1 race start again. If anything crazy happens, we'll jump back to it. But Steve McClendon here, let's talk about what happened with him here on this race start. He's behind Al Corey, and he tries to slot in the middle. He wants to take it 3 wide with JC, and as soon as he gets on the brakes, he just locks up the rears, sends the car around, and then Honeycutt had nothing to do to avoid him. Thankfully, everybody else goes around the outside there of turn 1. But then you go down a little bit further here, and then you get Mr. Brian Cooper who just slides it around.
Yeah, that was definitely clean up on aisle 3 for Brian Cooper in the 96. But yeah, looking back at it, as Kyle St. Jean is all he's like he's being on a dirt track at the moment, and he snaps it into the barriers. Oh dearie me, not exactly what you want to have happen, and he's just been put a lap down as a direct correlation. But yeah, Brad Kress is keeping Thumbsticks Tyler Merritt very, very honest as they're about to complete lap 2 out of 30 here at the Glen. As that was Terry Brooks Jr. in the 23, got all kind of sideways and crossed up, coming trying to accelerate through the final 90-degree right-hander. And I did say that with these cars, you've got to be so careful on that throttle. And again, but I have to say though, John Campbell, the 117, the Aussie, closing in on Al Corey for 5th place. Not doing too shabby a job at the moment. Jason Benson is up to P7. Isaiah Warren up 2 spots from the outside of row 5 at the start, and now is ahead of Steve McClendon, who is closing in on him and is gaining. That gap's down to less than half a second. We'll make that about 3.5 tenths as they go through into the bus stop. And Isaiah Warren just trying to keep it nice and clean at the moment. McClendon definitely wants to get a bit of a wriggle on here as we run on board with the 151, and this is going through the outer loop. Oh, Steve McClendon very, very brave at about the best part of 120 miles an hour coming through the outer loop, and now we're going to see them accelerate into the next left-hander. They were reaching speeds of nearly 160 miles an hour. Don't forget these cars are powered by the Ilmor V8s, pushing out 700 brake horsepower from those natural air-breathing monstrosities that are hooked onto the chassis, and you can see the amount of correction that Steve McClendon has, but he's got the overspeed on Isaiah Warren as they're going to be pushing the best part of 150 miles an hour here into the 90 at turn 1. And, well, nice move there by McClendon. Back up to P8 goes the 151. However, Carl St. Jean, in the meantime here, Brad, has ended up down pit road.
Yeah, Kyle St. John has had a very, very rough run, and it looks like that is going to continue through the pits here. What's really catching my eye with Isaiah Warren is consistency. We rode on board there, and as he dips a wheel in the grass, commentator cursed a little bit. We rode on board there with Steve McClendon and watching Isaiah Warren, and you could see just how much the car was wiggling under McClendon, but how much it wasn't under Isaiah Warren. And maybe that's just a little bit of a difference in how they push and how they go, but you could see that was there, and it was kind of showing a difference, especially as we see how wide they run out of that long right-hander here. Checking back in at the front of the field, Brad Kress, Tyler Merritt. The gap's about a second. I think Brad Kress is in a little bit of conservation mode as we have Terry Brooks Jr. here, who is trying to chase down Matt Harmon for P3. He wants that redemption. He wants the podium he didn't get last week as we start lap 5 here. And I do see Terry Brooks is right there in the mix. He's got to run consistent. We're 25 laps to go at this point, and everyone just needs to survive. We've had some chaos in the race start. Some people using faster pairs and going through, and this is just a case of survival here.
Yeah, definitely very much the case of survival of the fittest here at the Glen. But then you look back from the battle between Harmon and Brooks Jr. for P3. You then look back to P5 because Campbell's being caught by Benson. Well, Campbell's catching Corey for P5. Steve McClendon is about to go for a move, I would think, very, very shortly. You can see they're going through the bus stop. It's closing in on the 42 of Jason Benson, who's now in the position that McClendon was on qualifying, but McClendon up the inside through the outer loop. That's a sweet move there for the 151 as he's sideways whilst applying the power through the outer loop. And you were right about how wide they run, but Isaiah Warren is one of the smoothest drivers in terms of coming out of the outer loop, not getting a bit too trigger happy on the throttle. And because of these cars having low downforce, even with the honking rear wings on the back of them, they are, as I said, you've got to grab them by the scruff of the neck, kicking and screaming along. And the best part, at some points on this circuit, 160 plus miles an hour, you are literally 1 split second away as Carl St. Jean exits pit road and sees all the cars going past and went, I don't want any part of that whatsoever because these cars are battling away. And now McClendon's really picking up the pace and battling John Campbell for 6th spot.
And I tell you what, if you are Mr. JC John Campbell, what you don't want to see right now is exactly what he's seeing there. As McClendon just runs away and says, you know what, that's fine. I'll go ahead and move up another place here. P6, I made it hard on myself, and we'll just go ahead and run the way forward and keep it moving. And he's doing very, very well. Now, I do see something has happened with Kyle St. John, and I see something happen with Brian Cooper. Let's check out a quick replay here, see if we can tell exactly what happened. This is just the trigger for St. John coming out. What happened with Brian Cooper here? Well, Brian Cooper, this is hard braking into turn 1. This is hard braking into turn 1, and it looks like a right front lockup, runs wide, and the car just goes out from under him.
Oh. And a slight little love tap with the back bumper on the barriers coming through the exit of T1. Again, like I said, it's just these cars are, you know, the same spec vehicles. Everyone's in the same boat, but McClendon is not hanging about, folks. He's within 7.5 tenths of Al Corey. So McClendon on the move here with 24 to go. We're on lap 7 at the minute anyway, but McClendon now starting to find that flow, find that groove, and the car's really starting to work with him. And he's just got to be very, very careful, like we've seen a couple of cars, like we saw with Isaiah Warren a little bit earlier on, coming out of the S's at turn 4, just putting a left rear wheel on the grass. And in many respects, you have to sort of give these drivers props for going in a car that's not exactly the most, let's say, composed vehicle. GT3, GT4, that'll be a lot more composed around somewhere here like Watkins Glen. But when you've got these 700 brake horsepower V8 Leviathans pounding around this nearly 2.5 mile circuit, at some point something's got to give.
These almost remind me and make me think of the MX-5 Cup when you first start iRacing, and the first car you get into. Well, at least everyone I know that's ever ran iRacing, as we see McClendon is really putting the pressure on Al Corey into turn 1, but gets, again, a little wiggle on the throttle there. He's driving the car hard, and I respect it. He's putting a lot of pace into it, and he's doing well to catch it. But these cars, the way they handle, the way you have to drive them, really make me think of the MX-5 Miatas. And yes, I'm still going to call it a Miata. I don't care that they're actually called MX-5s and they dropped Miata forever ago. They are Mazda Miatas through and through. But that's how they drive. They're very floaty. They're very heavy. They're very they're not elegant. They're not like a GT3 car that has grace through the corners and is very, very much dancing and comfortable. These cars, you have to make them do what you want them to do. It's a different driving experience, and I think it's a lot of fun. I appreciate that we have so many drivers who are willing to take it around a road course like this, because it's not a simple challenge.
Yeah, just noticed that Brian Cooper's now in the pits and has been in there for nearly 30 seconds. As through the final corner at turn 11, well, there we go. McClendon on Corey, move's been made. And looking at the previous lap times, McClendon did a 1:15.9, Corey 1:16.4. As Terry Brooks Jr. has got through on Matt Harmon in the meantime for third place. There has been a lockup in front of Steve McClendon. As someone is running very, very slowly.
And that is Matt Harmon. What has happened to Matt Harmon?
That's the big problem for the 42, who is losing time significantly. I'm wondering whether he might have had a slowdown, because that is, I think, is that John Campbell right behind him? I know that's Jason Benson. And then you got John Campbell, the 117, not too far behind in P7. So Matt Harmon has. I did see a big old lockup from a car in front, and it was out of shot in front of Steve McClendon, who's now up 3 spots to P4. And you can see that Harmon's trying to get back onto the gravy train, so to speak. But yeah, a disaster for the 28 who started on the outside of row 2. As we are getting closer and closer to 1/3 distance being completed, due to complete nearly 74 miles of racing here at the Glen after 30 laps. But yeah, Matt Harmon really has come out of strife a little bit, and Benson's not too far behind him going into turn 1, and Benson throws it a little bit wider. I think that's Brian Cooper trying to come out of pit road, and he's just waiting for everyone to filter through, or he's possibly got a problem.
Yeah, I'm not sure here exactly what happened to him. I don't know what happened to Mr. Matt Harmon either. I'm very confused on that, but I do have a quick trigger here for Brian Cooper. So Brian Cooper's Iowa car is just going from a bad day to a worse day here. As he comes around, you can already see he's wrecked this car once. He's wrecked it twice. We're going to add a third into the mix as he goes around and doesn't just tap the inside, he taps the outside. And then we'll see here real quick, because it says that he had another moment exiting pit lane. And I'm hoping he didn't actually have a moment exiting pit lane, but it's telling me that something happened. I don't think it actually did there as we go through. And now I've got another Brian Cooper moment here as we jump back in. 20 to go officially, Alex, as we come up to cross the line. And it is in this mix here, this is the battle for P5, because realistically 1, 2, 3, and 4 have opened things up. McClendon does need to try to close the gap a bit to Brooks and try to battle for P3, which I think he can, but really the big battle is Corey, Harmon, and Benson right now.
Yeah, these three guys are split by about 0.8 of a second from front to back at the minute, but you know, Harmon just trying to get back into that groove, back into that flow, took a tighter entrance into turn 3 at the mid part of the S's, but gets a little bit of a wiggle going through T4. Oh, dearie me, and that was at the best part of north of 115 miles an hour, and that will really give anyone sort of that squeaky bum time moment, like saying, am I going to hold this? Am I going to hold this? And look at the speed cam as they run over it coming out of the bus stop. Wonderful shot there. Steve McClendon at the moment is now 2.6 seconds clear of Al Corey. And looking at the lap times, well, Tyler Merritt's running in the 1:15.9s. Brad Kress, high 1:16.2s, a high 16.6 for Terry Brooks, a low 16.3 for McClendon. And that gap now is coming down. It's about 5.8 seconds between third and fourth place, respectively. A 1:16.33 for Brooks Jr. Just going to wait for McClendon to cross the line. 1:16.218. So that gap is coming down, but not to the point where it needs to be significantly more than that. As Benson nearly gets a wiggle trying to apply the power coming out of T1, through into 2, now up the hill again through the S's. Harmon's really looking menacing, so is Benson, and Corey's got to be having his head on a swivel at the moment to sort of think, okay, right, who's going to pull the trigger first? Is it going to be Harmon? Is it going to be Benson? Well, it's a 3-car train on the run down to the bus stop here at the top part of the circuit, and a little bit more precaution taken by Benson, but a little bit more throwing caution to the wind by Harmon in 6th place, who's piggy in the middle in all of this.
Yeah, Matt Harmon is really sitting in a spot where he needs to look at trying to get a pass done, because the longer he's stuck in the middle here behind Corey, who is arguably the slower car, he's just under pressure by Benson, and Benson is doing well to sort of just sit in the mix. Now, we have had a little bit of a moment from our leader. You'll see that gap has came down to 3.8 seconds now as Al Corey is on the outside there with Harmon to the inside. Looked for the move, couldn't make it stick. They go back single file here down the hill, down into turn 1, and we'll see where this lands. Harmon again looking for a peek up the inside, and Al Corey's going to run it outside. Benson would still look up the middle and is going to try to just find his way through. They want to just push Harmon kind of out of their way, and can Benson make a move work around the outside? That is my question of the day, and the answer is no, and they just proceed as they were. Harmon's not able to get the pass done. Al Corey putting up a Canadian defense class and is doing very, very well. Now, are they going to go side by side in the bus stop? Oh, they're going to look at side by side in the bus stop, but they don't do it. But Benson's going to dive up the inside that turns to the outside to the inside. Again, not enough overspeed to make the pass, but he's really looking for it as we run down here into the long right-hander. And once again, it is as they were.
Al Corey has made that number 45 wider than the maple leaf on the Canadian national flag right about now. He's doing an absolutely sterling job, but you could see the sense of urgency, not desperation, whereas Benson, I think, might be a little bit desperate trying to get that move done. because he flung it up the inside of the first half of the bus stop, but that put him straight away on the back foot and I think he's just had a drama coming out of the final corner. So Benson's lost more time, which means that he's now a second behind Matt Harmon, and what that has also done is brought John Campbell in the 117 to within a second of him. So again, it's this case of a pendulum swing that happens from here to there. When it's a three-way battle and the cars are within half a second of each other, the biggest problem for Jason Benson was the fact that he was getting a double toe, but he was the one that would have had the loosest car out of those three going into particular points of the circuit. And that's exactly what he found out coming out of turn 11 at the 90 right. And you just saw there with Matt Harmon coming out of the bus stop, the front end taking a wallop of curve and just unsettling the front and making the car wiggle a little bit. So again, and you can see he's applying the power coming out of the outer loop, and the car's stepping out to the back on the back end to the left hand side. So it's far from easy. These drivers, folks, will be sweating bullets after this race.
Yeah, this is not an easy challenge as we get ready to cross the line here for 16 to go. I mean, I will tell you right now, looking at my timing sheet, there are tons of off tracks that are being counted in as we go through. And here we go. Matt Harmon is going to look that inside line again on Al Corey. But can he make it stick? Al Corey doing all of the right things to be defensive here and hold that car in place. He's doing an amazing job with it here as we again come through the S's, and Matt Harmon needs to find something. Benson's caught up. JC John Campbell's still a little bit back, and something we didn't really talk about is the slipstream. There is a little bit of slipstream power in these cars, especially with this straightaway, the main straightaway, and the back stretch as it sits. And look at how close Matt Harmon is on Al Corey as they go through. I mean, he's right there trying to make the move stick, but he can't make the move stick. And I mentioned earlier that our leader, Mr. Tyler Merritt, had a little off-track moment. I do want to jump up and check what that was. Now, this was on lap 12, so this was a couple of laps ago, and it's just an exit out of the penultimate corner. He runs fairly wide, and then into the final corner, runs just a little tight on and runs a little loose, little wall tap there, but nothing too bad. But it was enough of an error that he lost time in the gap, 3.5 seconds there between Merritt and Crest. And again, Matt Harmon trying as he may to make this pass on Al Corey. And as you see, Al Corey here is going to need to defend up the inside, places the car beautifully, and Matt Harmon is just stuck. There's nothing Matt Harmon can do to make this pass happen. As we go through the S's, we're officially half distance, and Matt Harmon will be furious right now that he cannot get this pass to happen.
Yeah, there's always going to be a sense of frustration creeping in, Brad, but as they say, if at first you don't succeed, try again, and that's exactly what Harmon is doing. He's not letting the frustration get the better of him, but he has now, and he's just tagged into the side of Benson. He spun himself around in front of Campbell, and Campbell's just hit his right front. All that hard work from Matt Harmon has just been thrown down the toilet and unceremonially flushed.
And now Warren's going to come around behind him. That is going to be Honeycutt, who is going to look for a little bit of a peak. Those are some beat-up race cars. We're 14 to go. You can see the front left there on Warren is beat up, and now Matt Harmon is just going to be digging up a hill as it goes. And I do want to check here really quick and watch a replay of exactly what happened with that. And this is them coming down into the bus stop, and you can see here as they go, Matt Harmon is the blue car in the middle. He goes on the grass, tries to come back, tags the side of Benson, and then John Campbell, well, he was out of the way, and then Harmon, not holding the brakes there, hits him and goes through.
Well, Benson and Campbell now both in pit road, I'm afraid, Brad. Looks like they're going to be repairing some major damage as a result of that contretemps. And, yeah, also in other news, oh, that was the Nodge. That was John Crutchley. Oh, that's definitely not going to buff out on a month of Sundays, even though it is Tuesday night. So, yeah. Again, it's just a case of, you know, you'll instigate that fast repair. This will also give him a chance to put some tyres on the car as well and have that opportunity. These drivers can put a full tank of gas in it as well. But in the meantime, I've been keeping my beady eyes on what Steve McClendon has been doing. Now, the gap between him and Terry Brooks Jr. in the battle for P3 is... Oh dear, Matt Harmon has just lost out to Honeycutt. Did you see how much of a tank slapper that car had? That was another Code Brown.
Barely.
It was, Matt Harmon was doing everything right up until that point where... he tried to go side by side with Al Corey, and going into the bus stop at that point with two cars side by side, it's always the one that's on the outside that ends up shortcutting the chicane. And then, it was a real shame that he came back onto the circuit, clattered into the side of Benson, spun himself around, and JC, John Campbell, unable to avoid, and both drivers end up in the pits for... I think Benson was in the pits on his marks in the pit box for just shy of 23 seconds. Campbell just shy of 25. So, and, well, Steve McClendon, how wide do you want to get at coming out of the outer loop? But in some respects, he's now got that gap to Terry Brooks Jr. down to less than 1.9 seconds at its lowest so far in this race. Then you consider how big is the gap between Terry Brooks Jr. and Brad Kress. Well, folks, that's nigh on 12 seconds.
Yeah, riding on board here with Steve McClendon. He's been slowly reeling in Terry Brooks Jr. and now he's at the point he can see him, but I do think Terry Brooks Jr. is playing tire conservation. I do think Terry Brooks Jr. is trying to save those tires a little bit so he can give it a charge to the end. And while they have tires in the pits, the question becomes, do you really want to pit? Do you want to take that tire time? And that time in the pit lane, it is 60 seconds in the pit lane, in and out, in order to do that pit stop, as we see Steve McClendon running very wide. And, Alex, I'm going to ask you a question as we go around this track, and as we get ready to exit the outer loop here. A lot of drivers take this wide, and of course, if you're familiar with real-life Watkins Glen, the final corner, technically the pit entry. Look at how wide Steve McClendon. Now, come on. I come from a Formula One background, and that would never fly. But what is your opinion?
And also in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, if you're in a GTP and you do that, you'll be under the wrath of race control quick, and you can say the word jump. I mean, that is just taking advantage and then putting the cherry on the cake as well whilst you're at it, but I think if it was like, say, single seaters, let's not forget Watkins Glen did host the F1 Grand Prix of the USA for 20 years, folks. So it does have some Formula One history around here, but now these days it's NASCAR, IMSA, and a lot of the the SCCA kind of grassroots sports car racing. But I mean, if that was race control looking at that, they would have more than put Steve McClendon through the pit lane at least once or twice over the course of the race, if it was real life stewarding being implemented, let's say. But he's not the only one that's been guilty of doing it tonight either.
I think that's one of the fun things with sim racing, is that sometimes you get away with those little things like that realistically we know does not fly in real life, but the sim doesn't enforce it, and the drivers find it's a little bit faster that way, so they take advantage of it, even if it's not the most realistic thing to do in the simulator. It's just like the final corner. Realistically, on the final corner, your apex is in the middle of the corner, and
Isaiah Warren!
Oh, he saved it, though. He saved it and locked up the brakes. Kept it going. Take a bow, Isaiah Warren. That is my save of the day, I believe.
My goodness. I mean, I think he might have just hit the loud pedal a bit too early coming out of the outer loop. But I mean, the second half of it, when you're coming through, and we're going to see another drama here for Brian Cooper, I'm afraid, coming out of the bus stop, has a little bit of a wiggle, back end steps out. That's at the top of the outer loop. So, Isaiah Warren, well held, because you're still in 8th spot at the moment, because he's got a 34-second advantage over Jason Benson in the 42. But Isaiah Warren, how close did you need to be it just like literally went so wide, and then the back end just went, "Yep, I'm stepping out. Thank you very much. Good night."
Hey, Isaiah, if you want to send me your address, I would be more than happy to Amazon Prime next day ship a fresh pair of underwear, because that was a certified Code Brown. And I tell you who's having their next Code Brown here is Mr. Terry Brooks Jr. We've kept our eyes on this Brooks McClendon battle here, Alex, and look where we're at. We're getting within a second. 0.6 of a second is how I show it on my screen. As we continue on this battle, 9 to go. Other than Honeycutt and Harmon, this is our closest battle on track, and it's going to continue to heat up as it goes. But I will say that Matt Harmon is trying to find one more position back, one more little taste of redemption there. If he can get around Honeycutt, which it looks like he might down the main straight.
Yeah, well, he's got to be very, very careful on approaching into turn 1, because you've got that aggressive right-hand side camber into that first corner, and now it's going to be the run through the S's. The best thing that Harmon can do is wait until they get onto the back stretch, because they're going to go through T2, now into 3, then into the right at the top of the crest, heading onto the back straightaway. So if he can get the overspeed here, that might help him coming out of the outer loop. Probably not worth chancing it unless you were literally bump drafting right behind him and Harmon decides to just take the traditional racing line and just keep it nice and clean, and then come through the outer loop, and then maybe get the run on James Honeycutt and the number 76 with the good old Stars and Stripes livery SRX car. It is going to be a case of, and look what Harmon is doing, mirroring Honeycutt at the moment. He's going to dive to the inside here at turn 10. That was very, very close indeed, but Honeycutt runs wide. He's going to cut across the front of Harmon, who might get the inside line coming through the final corner here at turn 11. Now it's going to be the run down to T1. This is going to be very, very crucial, and Harmon is literally 2/10 behind him. Now pulls to the right-hand side. This could be the opportunity that he needs. He's going to dive to the inside. They're going to be briefly wheel to wheel as Brian Cooper makes his exit out of pit lane, and still Honeycutt defends from Harmon, and that's the battle for P6.
Yeah, while this battle for P6 is going on, we do have the battle for P3 going on here with Terry Brooks Jr. and Steve McClendon. Steve McClendon, a driver that's found his way all the way back up into P4 and is trying to redeem onto a podium here. And Terry Brooks Jr., who just wants to redeem the podium from last weekend that he lost at the start-finish line. And with 7 to go, he's in a good spot. The question is, how wide is an SRX car? And the real question is, how wide can Terry Brooks make an SRX car? I think those are two questions that need to be answered separately, because if you ask Terry Brooks, he'll say, well, how wide is the Watkins Glen pavement? Because that's how wide I can make this car. As we jump back here real quick, Matt Harmon with Honeycutt up the inside. He's a little bit further ahead this time, a little door-to-door. They're treating these cars like late models with a little bit of beating and banging and going on. Honeycutt still to the inside, but Harmon has enough ahead going into the final corner that he is able to get ahead. And now Matt Harmon redeems his way up into P6. He's still down 3 places on the day, but not a bad day indeed for a recovery drive from, well, what he's dealt with on the day. You got to give him a little credit for getting back into P6.
I have to give him credit for lining it up so neatly through at turn number 10. And the good thing was that James Honeycutt gave him enough racing room and racing respect through that penultimate left-hander. So from that perspective, that's always a good sign of sportsmanship, where you get the drivers giving each other a little bit of pressure, but also saying, look, I am there, just be careful. And, well, in the meantime, Steve McClendon has got past Terry Brooks Jr. and now is 1.3 seconds up the road. So McClendon, having dropped down towards the bottom part of the top 10 after the turn 1, lap 1 incident, here at the Glen, he's now pulling a gap. It's 1.5 seconds, of course, with 6 to go, including this one here, Brad. 12.8 seconds is a big gap to try and close up on. If there were, like, say, an additional 10 laps to go, you wouldn't put it past Steve McClendon to actually end up in P2 by the checkered. But at this point, McClendon, you know, a recovery drive, but Thumbsticks on lap 25 is leading by nearly 10 seconds ahead of Brad Kress, who was keeping him very, very honest in the early stages. You know, the gap after, I think, the opening 3 to 4 laps was just just north of a second. But for Brad Crest to be 10 seconds behind, even at this stage of the race, still a pretty good shout for the number 9 to he won't get on victory lane, and Thumbsticks doing exactly what he needs to do, and he's led from the front and has been comfortable, having broken the deadlock over Brad Crest.
And he's getting ready to lap Naj Crutchley there. I do want to go back and look at that Steve McClendon and Terry Brooks pass here. If we can get a quick replay. Terry Brooks goes wide. That's turn 1. And Steve McClendon just says, you know what? Thank you very much. I'll make that a nice, simple, clean pass. And that was going on at the same time Matt Harmon and James Honeycutt were battling. So clean, pretty pass and no big dramas with it. Now we have our race leader. Look at Naj. Naj just runs very wide there and stops. He said, I want no part of this. Go ahead, Tyler. Go ahead, sir. You are the leader of the race. You are today's race sponsor. And I'll just go ahead and stay out of your way there. I don't think he meant to do that, actually, but I'm going to paint it that that's what he was doing.
Yeah, now there's Brian Cooper, who's decided to invoke the biggest off-track. I think that the live timing is registered for us all night long, apart from the few moments. But yeah, Thumbsticks getting very close again. The left rear scraping against the wall. Brian Cooper decides to dive down pit road again, possibly for off-track infringements. And that off-track we just saw might have just instigated an automatic drive-through down the pit lane.
Brian Cooper has been in the pits pretty much every lap as I look back here on my timing tables. He's had...
This is his 4th trip down pit road.
Yeah, he's had a fun time in the pits today, so I'm going to imagine he's just doing it for fun at this point. I don't know what else he would be doing here with that decision. Harmon and Honeycutt. Look at this battle developing.
Well, there we go. Brian Cooper said in the SRX Discord chat, speeding ticket, leaving, and then entering the pits. Laugh out loud. Whoopsie.
I mean, you know what? Brian Cooper, if you're going to do it, you might as well do it right. And ain't no sense of doing that on one at a pit road if you could do it on both. I respect it.
True. Very, very true. But also the fact that at least he won't get a fine. Unlike, say, if you're in Formula 1 and you get caught speeding in the pit lane.
Yeah, that's true. But, hey, if he did get a fine, where would that money go?
Probably to Thumbstick's favourite charity, maybe.
Probably. That's actually a good question. Maybe we could get Thumbsticks a better controller or a sim rig. There's options. We'll make sure to discuss it with admin later. Terry Brooks Jr. has had an off-track excursion here. He was battling with Steve McClendon, and then he just ran it a bit wide. He was trying to look for the gap. The gap's now 2 seconds between them, and that is going to be the case. Why? About 2 seconds out of track limits as it goes through. And I'm registering more Brian Cooper crashes here. So, and again, it's just he's stopping at pit exit to let people through, and it's registering as crashes, but he's not actually crashing. And as we go 3 to go here, I mean, we'll check in with Tyler Merritt. I mean, he's virtually 3/4 of the way around the lap. There's 2 to go almost. Brad Crest, 8.76 seconds back. And then you jump another 14 seconds back to McClendon and Brooks that are a couple seconds separated. So at this point, the drivers are very much just trying to drive it through to the end here. As we have Harmon and Honeycutt. This is your closest battle on track, and it's still about a second gap that sits between them, but it is slowly closing because Honeycutt's had some good pace, but he's a little slow in the bus stop, and that gap will open back up, but he is reeling Harmon back in through the other parts of the track.
Yeah, I think there's, with any sort of track, whether it be an oval, whether it be a road course, Brad, is that you'll always have strengths, you'll always have weaknesses, and whenever it comes to a road course, you go like, okay, where am I strong around this circuit? Where can I make up the most amount of time if I'm chasing somebody down? You know, and also when there are 3 sectors to consider, you're getting people like Brad Crest who are now running in the, a high 29.8 in the opening sector, whereas Tyler Merritt, who's got an 8.6 second advantage, is running nearly a 30.5 in the opening sector. Then is quicker than Cress in sectors 2 and 3. So thereby the differential gets sort of obliterated into non-existence. So it'll always be that some drivers, I mean, Jason Benson I've just seen has just done, well, white flag is out, my good friend, 1 to go, and Tyler Merritt, well, it's been an absolutely sterling drive for the man who's not only put it on pole position, has had every single lap, he's got the fastest lap of the race, but he's also the race sponsor with the Thumbsticks at the Glen.
Yeah, Thumbsticks has just had a clean run today. It's been a very, very good move here as we see him take his final lap through. You see the car a little bit swirly, but it seems like 30 laps on these tires didn't do too bad through, and so I'm kind of enjoying seeing this. You see he takes this final bus stop. He's a little greedy there, and I think it's just because of the fact that he can, honestly. But you see he's having his bit of a victory joyous run. He's being a little bit chaotic, and I kind of like it because this is just celebration. This is what happens when you dominate on a day like this. You can kind of get away on the final lap. You've got 9 seconds in your pocket, and what can you really say about Mr. Thumbsticks Merritt there with the Macon Setup Shop, McConey Setup Shop LLC livery? He's going to come around the final corner. He's led every lap, fastest lap. I mean, it's domination for him, and he comes across Mr. Thumbsticks Merritt, today's race sponsor, wins Thumbsticks at the Glen. I couldn't write it myself, even if I tried.
Yep. Brian Cress will come across the line, 9.2 seconds behind in P2. And we got a little bit of a wait before out of the final corner. Well, will he still be leading the championship after this round? We'll have to find out when the scores on the doors are adjusted. But Steve McClendon recovers from what could have been a very disastrous night in the office, from down all the way down to P9, recovers to finish P3 ahead of Terry Brooks Jr. and the man that makes his car back end as wide as the maple leaf on the Canadian national flag. Well, the Canadian tyre number 45 of Al Corey punches the pedal to the metal out of the final turn and will come across the line in a well-deserved P5, exactly where he started. Matt Harmon, well, it could have been a lot worse than what it actually ended up being, finishes P6 ahead of James Honeycutt. And, well, we are just waiting for our 8th place driver, and here he comes, the number 61, newbie to the league, Isaiah Warren. Started in 10th spot, made up 2 in the progress of the race, and makes it across the line in a well-deserved 8th.
I tell you what, Isaiah Warren, I think, gets my driver of the day, and I'll tell you why it's him and not Thumbsticks. It's because it's his first race, and we watched him go through off tracks and chaos, but find his way up 2 places on the day. So a very, very good showing from him as it stood. And as we watch, you know, our race sponsor, Tyler Thumbsticks Merritt, burn it down here at Watkins Glen, let's pull up these final official results. And it is Tyler Merritt by 9.2 seconds. Cress, McClendon, Brooks, Corey, Harmon, Honeycutt, Warren, Benson, JC, John Campbell. Hey, Thumbsticks, you need the front end of your car, buddy. You're not supposed to hit the wall when you do a burnout.
That won't go through technical. That won't go through technical at all.
Not at all. Crutchley, Brian Cooper probably gets my try again next week award, because Brian Cooper
No. I'll add one to that. He's got the most Code Brown moments of the evening award.
Yeah, he had some rough ones. And then Kyle St. John, who made it to lap 10 and then did not make it much further. But I tell you what, why don't we see if we can grab some of these drivers and let's just talk to them and see how they are feeling here tonight. Who we got, and who's available. Let's see as we look for them here. All right, let's see what drivers we can grab. Let's start out with our race sponsor, Thumbsticks Merritt. Hey, Thumbsticks, it's going to be Bradley and Alex. First things first, you know you're not supposed to hit the wall when you do a burnout?
Hey, listen here. This is like the second time I've ever driven this car.
Second time you've driven the car, but you win by a dominating fashion. How how boring was the race for you? Let's be honest.
It was a boring because the car was a handful, as I was telling Rafter, and then I said, you pretty much had to drive this car like an 87, just a little more downforce and more grip. That's pretty much it. It was a lot of fun, though. I was telling them they're complaining about their tires wearing out. I said, the tire wearing didn't mind me. It didn't bother me besides the front end starting to understeer, but I loved it because back heel was starting to step out. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to start doing Shane the SVG thing now. I can do that for the celebration.
Yeah, and looking through with the SRXs, I compared them to the Miatas during the broadcast with Alex. I told him, I said, I feel like this is a Miata in its sort of handling and its clunkiness and sort of the looseness a little bit. You've got to be under the car. It's not the fastest thing, but it is pretty consistent. Am I wrong in that, or am I right in that? You tell me how you feel.
I'd say this kind of drives like the 87, as I said. But the thing is, the tires just don't wear nowhere near as bad. Like, I was telling Raptor, I said, after I did a burnout, my worst tire was like the left rear at 74. That was my worst tire. After that long burnout I did, that was like my worst tire.
So there was no need for pit stops or anything, really.
No, I mean, I'd say unless you spun out really bad, you heated the rears up to where you couldn't control it, I'd say that's the only time I'd say you needed to pit. That's it.
And I'm gonna ask, you might know what I'm about to ask. Why'd you decide to sponsor Watkins Glen tonight in the SRXs? What made you decide that this was the track car combo that you wanted to sponsor?
Because I'd say I wanted to sponsor another road race, and I said there's a good chance more people are going to show for a Tuesday night SRX race compared to like a GT3 race, because I know a lot of people have been busy on Friday nights for the summer, now. And, I'd say a lot of people love the SRX car, and I'm like, if I'm going to sponsor a SRX race, I'm going to do it on a track I'm actually going to show up for. Which, I mean, this track is a lot of fun, especially this combo. I've already messaged someone saying they need to do this combo for a money race one day. This combo is fun.
What's the other SRX race that you came to?
Oh, this is it. I was just saying, like, if I did sponsor a SRX race, it had to be this one because it's a road course.
You know what? I respect that. Because, of course, the SRX is probably the most versatile car in the league that can run road, oval, and run dirt. And it's a mix depending on which one you do, how the car handles, how it goes. Tyler, it was a good run from you. Nice domination. Started in qualifying, led every lap, fastest lap. So very, very strong win. Before I let you go for the night, anyone you want to thank, anyone you want to shout out, you are the race sponsor. The floor is yours. Feel free to take as long as you'd like.
I want to thank you guys for the amazing broadcast like usual. I want to thank Rafter and the rest of the admins for always making this such a great league. I want to thank McConaughey Setup Shop, my two teams, Wanted Goons and Full Send Racing. They're both amazing teams for iRacing. They're both very casual, but we've been trying to step up. With Wanted Goons, we're going to try to make an attempt at Road to Pro next year. With me and about 4 other people, we're going to see how that goes. And I'd say just, again, thank y'all for the broadcast, because I was listening to it during the race, and I was almost like, I went to go get a sip of Dr. Pepper during the race, and I almost spit my drink at one time when y'all were mentioning something about what Cooper did. I was like...
Oh, that is great. Well, I'm very glad that you did not spit Dr. Pepper out, because I can't imagine that would have went well, but a good race from you nonetheless, Tyler. It's always good to see you on track, and when's the next race we're gonna see you at?
When's the next broadcasted race? Let me see real quick.
Raptor
sent me the thing all back. Let me see what it is.
I think the next one is Thursday night. It's Xfinity at Rockingham in 2 days.
Oh, well, you are definitely going to see that, because I've got I'm leading still. I got a 40 points lead, and that's actually enough for almost a full race cushion. I'm happy that I can actually, I'm happy that I can actually start taking the races a little easier now, since I've got a points cushion.
Well, we'll see how easy you take it Thursday night, and I'm sure I'll be talking to you in a couple days, unless you manage to find a wall and try a burnout.
All right, you guys have a good night. Thanks for the broadcast as usual, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. Have a good night.
See ya.
All right, Alex. And our P2 driver doesn't seem to be around, so let's go ahead and grab Steve McClendon here. And Steve, it is going to be Bradley and Alex up here in the booth. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing good, sir. How are you?
I am good. Talk to me about the SRX at Watkins Glen. It's a challenging car and track, and of course, lap 1, turn 1 didn't seem to be the best thing ever for you, but you brought it back for a P3 in the end.
Yeah, we ran the GTP here over the weekend, and so for the last 3 weeks we've been running high down practice before this evening. Had a busy day at work, busy day at home. We're getting ready to go on vacation, and so I had about 10 minutes to learn the combination, and I had still not figured it out at that point. Still had too much rear brake in it, and when we all slowed down, it just took off. So kind of sucked there to get on the back leg, back foot right off the start, but was what it is, and made the best of it. So I will say this is by far my least favorite combination we've run in this series so far.
I was going to ask you, because you've ran, I'm pretty sure you've ran every race so far. I was going to ask you, out of all the races we've ran to date here, which one was your favorite, which one was your least favorite, but I think you might have just answered the least favorite part.
The least favorite is definitely this one. I had higher hopes for this car, I think, because they're supposed to be balanced and all this, and it just didn't feel that way to me. The most favorite, I don't know. I really I hadn't found one I hadn't liked yet. I'd probably say last week running Chicago was pretty fun, so had a good time with that one. So yeah, I'd say Chicago's the leader in the pack right now, and then this by far is bringing up the rear. Maybe if I had some more time to perfect it, 15 minutes just wasn't enough to cut it tonight.
Yeah, and looking ahead, Richmond Raceway is next week, 105 laps there at night. I think that's going to be a good race. What are your hopes moving forward there for next week?
I mean, for me, Richmond's not my favorite track, so I'm just hoping to get, stay steady Eddie like we've been all season, and maybe get lucky, find some speed in it. Biggest thing right now is just kind of stay in front of Brad the whole time and see if I can keep stretching out points. I gave a few up to him tonight, I know. So, like I said, the biggest thing is I think we've kind of separated ourselves enough at this point that I got to worry about him. So, just kind of keep it clean, keep it steady like we've been doing, and see where it goes.
Awesome. And then, of course, before we let you go for the night, anyone you want to thank, anyone you want to shout out?
Just Tyler for putting this deal on tonight. I appreciate that. And then all the other guys at Triple ByPass for doing everything every week. And as always, Nathan over at Catamount. So that's it. Yeah, we appreciate y'all too, and look forward to the next one.
Awesome. And thanks, Steve. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Thank you.
All right, Alex. So some mixed reviews on the SRX at Watkins Glen, but I mean, I think it was a good race overall.
Yeah, I definitely know that Steve McClendon did not have the black book of excuses coming out there, because you said that they've been running the GTP, completely different vehicle, completely different animal altogether, but still to have a blunder, let's call it that, shall we, at turn 1, lap 1, and still to be able to wrestle the car by the scruff of the neck to come back kicking and screaming to P3 at the end. But yeah, Thumbsticks, what can you say? You can't put any more superlatives against Tyler Merritt. Sponsored the race, managed to take off the front end whilst doing the celebratory donuts, but still, it was for him. Yeah, he was hoping for more battles, but sometimes drivers do want a challenge. But hey, that's racing.
That it is. And then, of course, remember, if you want to get more racing, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, ring the bell, do all the fun things that you can do here to support the JP Broadcasting Network. As you heard Mr. Thumbsticks himself say, we will be back on Thursday night with Triple ByPass Xfinities. And then from there, we've got plenty of action coming up all over the place. It's a packed calendar coming up for the next 6 weeks. So much work that, honestly, I have forgotten how much there is. It is quite a lot. There's racing every night of the week and twice on every night of the week. So if you want to be sure to see that, be sure to like, subscribe, follow. If you want to get involved with Triple Bypass, be sure to go to triplebypassracing.com, join them, check out their Discord, and they are great guys. They would absolutely love to have you. And of course, on behalf of Mr. Alex Goldshmidt, my name is Bradley Dalton. We've taken you from start to finish, and be sure to join us Thursday night, where we'll take you start to finish again here with Triple Bypass. Good night.